Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. We had a few little glitches getting things worked out this morning, but we're here. Looking forward to getting into the next chapter of the book, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And we're in the chapter beginning with the title saying A Silver Tray of Honey Cakes. And hopefully, as always, I'll let everybody introduce themselves, and then if Catherine doesn't mind, because she does the best job of reading for us, I appreciate if she would go ahead and read the chapter for us, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Yeah, good morning. Glad to be here. And thank you for that introduction, Dan. This is Jason from Tampa Bay, Florida, and looking forward to the reading and hoping everyone's having a great weekend and can join us. Even if you're watching the recording, make a quick comment and hope you can join us one Saturday here in the future.
Good morning, everyone. This is Catherine Clement. So I was just looking back at the last chapter. This is a life where Nora is the singer of a band, the Labyrinths. And the way that that chapter ends is you can have everything and feel nothing at Nora Labyrinth. And she's tweeted it, and it's got lots of retweets and likes, and she has lots of followers. So, a silver tray of honey cakes. It was wild to think of this life coexisting with her others in the multiverse, just like another note in a chord. Nora found it almost impossible to believe that while in one life she was struggling to pay the rent, in another she was causing such excitement among people all over the world. I think your mic's on, Dan. The handful of fans who had filmed the tour bus arrive at the hotel were now waiting for autographs. They didn't seem too bothered about the other band members, but they did seem desperate to interact with Nora. She looked at one as she crunched over the gravel towards them. The girl had tattoos and was wearing an outfit that made her look like a flapper girl who had somehow got caught up in a cyberpunk version of a post-apocalyptic war. Her hair was styled exactly like Nora's, complete with matching white stripe. Nora! Nora! Hi! We love you, Queen. Thank you for coming to Brazil. You rock. And then a chant started. Nora! 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 While she was signing autographs in an ineligible scribble, a man in his early 20s took off his t-shirt and asked her to sign his shoulder. It's for a tattoo, he said. Really? She asked, writing her name onto the man's body. This is the highlight of my life, he gushed. My name is Francisco. Nora wondered how her writing on his skin with a Sharpie could be a highlight of his existence. You saved my life. Beautiful Sky saved my life. That song, it's so powerful. Oh, oh, wow. Beautiful Sky? You know Beautiful Sky? The fan burst into hysterics. You're so funny. This is why you're my idol. I love you so much. Do I know Beautiful Sky? That's brilliant. Nora didn't know what to say. That little song she had written when she was 19 years old at university in Bristol had changed the life of a person in Brazil. It was overwhelming. This, clearly, was the life she was destined for. She doubted that she would ever have to go back to the library. She could cope with being adored. It was better than being in Bedford, sitting on the number 77 bus, humming sad tunes to the window. She posed for selfies. One young woman looked close to tears. She had a large photo of Nora kissing Ryan Bailey. I was so sad when you broke up with him. I know, yeah, it was sad, but things happen. It's a learning curve. Joanna appeared at her arm and gently guided her away towards the hotel. When she reached the elegant jasmine-scented lobby, marble chandeliers, floral displays, she saw that the rest of the band were already in the bar. But where was her brother? Maybe he'd been schmoozing the press somewhere else. As she started to move towards the bar, she realized that everyone, concierge, receptionist, guests, was looking at her. Nora was about to finally seize the opportunity to ask about her brother's whereabouts when Joanna beckoned over a man who was wearing a t-shirt with the Labyrinth printed on it in a retro sci-fi movie font. The guy was probably in his 40s with a graying beard and thinning hair, but he seemed intimidated by Nora's presence. He did a tiny bow when he shook Nora's hand. "I'm Marcello," he said. "Thanks for agreeing to the interview." Nora noticed another man behind Marcello, younger, with piercings, tattoos, and a big smile, holding recording equipment. "We'd reserved a quiet spot in the bar," Joanna said, "but there's people. I think we had better do this in Nora's suite." "Great," said Marcello. "Great, great." As they walked over to the lift, Nora glanced back at the bar and saw the other band members. "You know, maybe you'd like to speak to the others too," she said to Marcello. "They remember things I don't, a lot of things." Marcello smiled and shook his head and delicately said, "It works better this way, I feel." "Oh, okay," she said. Every eye was on them as they waited for the lift to arrive. Joanna leaned into Nora. "Are you okay?" "Of course, yeah. Why?" "I don't know. You seem different tonight." "Different how?" "Just different." As they got in the lift, Joanna asked another woman, one Nora recognized from the coach, to bring some drinks from the bar. 2 beers for the podcasters, a sparkling mineral water for Nora, and I don't even know what that is, Cape, and something else for herself. "And bring them up to the suite, Maya." "Maybe I am teetotal in this life," thought Nora, as she walked out of the lift and along the plush salmon pink carpet to her suite. And then, as she entered it, she tried to act like this was all perfectly normal. This gigantic room leading to another gigantic room, leading to a gigantic bathroom. There was a vast bouquet of flowers for her, with a note signed by the hotel's manager. "Wow," she resisted saying, as she gazed around at the lavish furnishings, the sweeping floor-to-ceiling curtains, the pristine white bed the size of an acre, the TV the size of a small cinema, the champagne on ice, the silver tray full of Brazilian honey cakes, as the card informed them. "Don't suppose you'll be having any of these," said Joanna, taking one of the little delicacies from the tray. "Now you're on that new plan. Harley said I had to keep an eye on you." Nora watched Joanna bite into one of the cakes and wondered how good any plan could be if it didn't involve eating something so clearly delicious as a Brazilian honey cake. She had no idea who Harley was, but she knew she didn't like him. "Also, just so you know, the fires are still going on in LA and they're evacuating half of Calabas now, but hopefully it won't get as high as your place." Nora didn't know whether to be pleased at the idea of having a house in LA or worried that it was about to go on fire. The 2 Brazilian podcast guys took a few moments to set up their equipment, and Nora sunk herself into the vast sofa in the living area as Joanna, attending to a few rogue crumbs around her mouth with a heavily manicured finger, explained that their music podcast, O Sam, was the most popular in Brazil. "Great demographics," Joanna enthused, "and the numbers are stratospheric. It's totally worth doing." And she stayed there, watching like a hawk mother as the podcast began. The podcast of revelations. "So, it has been a crazy year for you," Marcella began in his very good English. "Oh, yeah, it has been quite a ride," said Nora, trying to sound like a rock star. "Now, if I may ask about the album, Pottersville. You wrote all the lyrics, yes?" "Mostly, yes," Nora guessed, staring at the small, familiar mole on her left hand. "She wrote all of them," interjected Joanna. Marcello nodded while the other guy, still smiling toothily, fiddled about with sound levels via a laptop. "I think Feathers is my favorite track," said Marcello as the drinks arrived. "I'm glad you like it." Nora tried to think of a way she could get out of this interview. A headache, a bad stomach. But the one I'd like to talk about first is the first one you decided to release. Stay out of my life. It seemed such a personal statement. Nora forced a smile. The lyrics say it all, really. Obviously, there has been some speculation about whether it refers to the, how do you say in English, restraining order, offered Joanna helpfully. Yes, the restraining order. Said Nora, taken aback. Well, I prefer to get it all out in the song. I find that stuff difficult to talk about. Yes, I understand. It is just that in your recent Rolling Stone interview, you talked a little about your former boyfriend, Dan Lord, and mentioned how difficult it was to get the restraining order against him after he stalked you. Didn't he try to break into your house? Then tell reporters that he wrote the lyrics for Beautiful Sky. Jesus. She hovered at the intersection of tears and laughter and managed somehow to give neither. I wrote it when I was still with him, but he didn't like it. He didn't like me being in this band. He hated it. He hated my brother. He hated Robbie. He hated Ella, who was one of the original members. Anyway, Dan was very jealous. This was so surreal. In one life, the life he'd supposedly wanted, Dan was so bored in his marriage to Nora he was having an affair, while in this life, he was breaking into her house because he couldn't stand her success. He's a dick, said Nora. I don't know the Portuguese swear word for a terrible person. Mm, casao, I don't know how to say that. It means someone's a dick. Or an asshole, the younger guy added, stone-faced. Yeah, well, he's a Kazale or whatever. He turned out to be someone else entirely. It's weird the way when your life changes, people act in different ways. The price of fame, I suppose. And you wrote a song called Henry David Thoreau. You don't get many songs named after philosophers. I know. Well, when I studied philosophy at university, he was my favorite, hence my tattoo. And it made a marginally better song title than Immanuel Kant. She was getting into the swing of it now. It wasn't too hard to act a life when it was the one she was destined for. And how, obviously, such a powerful song. #1 in 22 countries. Grammy award-winning video with a Hollywood A-list cast. I suppose you're done talking about it? I suppose, yes. Joanna went to get herself another honey cake. Marcelo smiled gently as he pressed on. For me, it seems so primal. The song, I mean, like you were letting everything out. And then I discovered you wrote it on the very night you fired your last manager for Joanna, after you found out he'd been ripping you off. Yeah, that wasn't good, she improvised. It was such a betrayal. I was a big Labyrinth fan before Hal, but that was the one for me. That and Lighthouse Girl. Hal was where I was like, Nora Seed is a genius. The lyrics are pretty abstract, but the way you just let out that rage was so soft and soulful and powerful all at once. It's like early Cure fused with Frank Ocean via the Carpenters and Tame Impala. Nora tried and failed to imagine what that could possibly sound like. He started to sing to everyone's surprise. Silence the music to improve the tune. Stop the fake smiles and howl at the moon. Nora smiled and nodded as if she knew these lyrics. Yeah, I was just howling. Marcelo's face became serious. He looked genuinely concerned for her. You've had so much shit to deal with these last few years. Stalkers, bad managers, the fake feuds, the court case, the copyright issues, the messy breakup with Ryan Bailey, the reception of the last album, rehab, that incident in Toronto, that time you collapsed from exhaustion in Paris, personal tragedy, drama, 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 and all that media intrusion. Why do you think the press hates you so much? Nora began to feel a bit queasy. Was this what fame was like? like a permanent bittersweet cocktail of worship and assault. It was no wonder so many famous people went off the rails when the rails veered in every direction. It was like being slapped and kissed at the same time. I I don't know. It's pretty crackers. I mean, do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you had decided to take a different path? Nora listened to this as she stared at the bubbles rising in her mineral water. I think it is easy to imagine there are easier paths, she said, realizing something for the first time. But maybe there are no easy paths. There are just paths. In one life, I might be married. In another, I might be working in a shop. I might have said yes to this cute guy who asked me out for a coffee. In another, I might be researching glaciers in the Arctic Circle. In another, I might be an Olympic swimming champion. Who knows? Every second of every day, we are entering a new universe. And we spend so much time wishing our lives were different, comparing ourselves to other people and to other versions of ourselves, when really most lives contain degrees of good and degrees of bad. Marcelo and Joanna and the other Brazilian guy were staring at her wide-eyed, but she was on a roll now, freewheeling. There are patterns to life, rhythms. It is so easy, while trapped in just the one life, to imagine that times of sadness or tragedy or failure or fear are a result of that particular existence, that it is byproduct of living a certain way rather than simply living. I mean, it would have made things a lot easier if we understood there was no way of living that can immunize you against sadness, and that sadness is intrinsically part of the fabric of happiness. You can't have one without the other. Of course, they come in different degrees and quantities, but there is no life where you can be in a state of sheer happiness forever, and imagining there is just breeds more unhappiness in the life you're in. That is a great answer, Marcella said, after he was sure she was finished. But tonight, I would say, at the concert, you seemed happy. When you played bridge over troubled water instead of howl, that was a powerful statement. It was saying, I am strong. It felt like you were telling us, your fans, that you were okay. And so, how is touring going? Well, it's great. And yes, I just thought I'd send a message that, I'm out here living my best life. But I miss home after a while. Which one? Asked Marcello with a quietly cheeky smile. I mean, do you feel more at home in London or LA or on the Amalfi Coast? It seemed this was the life where her carbon footprint was the highest. I don't know. I suppose I would say London. Marcello took a sharp intake of breath as if the next question was something he had to swim under. He scratched his beard. Okay, but I suppose it must be hard for you, as I know you shared that flat with your brother. Why would it be hard? Joanna gave her a curious glance from above her cocktail. Marcello looked at her with sentimental fondness. His eyes seemed glazed. I mean, he went on after a delicate sip of beer, your brother was such a big part of your life, such a big part of the band. Was. So much dread in such a small word, like a stone falling through water. She remembered asking Robbie about her brother before the encore. She remembered the crowd's reaction when she had mentioned her brother on stage. He's still around. He was here tonight. She means she feels him, said Joanna. They all feel him. He was such a strong spirit, troubled, but strong. It was a tragedy how the drink and drugs and the whole life got to him in the end. What are you talking about? Nora asked. She was no longer acting a life. She genuinely needed to know. Marcelo looked sad for her. You know, it's only been 2 years since his death, his overdose. Nora gasped. She didn't arrive back in the library instantly because she hadn't absorbed it. She stood up, dazed, and staggered out of the suite. Nora? Laughed Joanna nervously. Nora! She got in the lift and went down to the bar, to Ravi. You said Joe was schmoozing the media. What? You said I asked you what Joe was doing, and you said schmoozing the media. He put his beer down and stared at her like a riddle. And I was right. She was schmoozing the media. She? He pointed over to Joanna, who was looking aghast as she headed over from the lifts in the lobby. Yeah, Joe, she was with the press. And Nora felt the sadness like a punch. Oh, no, she said. Oh, Joe. Oh, Joe. And the Grand Hotel bar disappeared. The table, the drinks, Joanna, Marcella, the sound guy, the hotel guests, Robbie, the others, the marble floor, the barman, the waiters, the chandeliers, the flowers, all became nothing at all. That's a good place to stop.
I
Yeah.
agree. So any thoughts on these last couple of chapters?
Wow, well, that was a great reading. So interesting how there was a lot of um, I don't know, happy little coincidences in her experience in that life, and yet there was that contrast of her finding out that in that life path her brother had overdosed. So they, I feel like kind of learned more Nora and about Nora in a deeper sense there and during that scene and how and what was sort of um, opening up as being important to her, more important to her, I guess. What do you think?
Yeah, I think she's really starting to get learn some lessons here going back and forth between the library. She's getting better about improvising, sort of. But my goodness, how sad that like she finally gets this life that she's pretty sure like this is the one, and then just totally gut punched when she finds out that her brother has, I don't know if he overdosed, I guess is what happened. So um I mean how it's shit like that happens. Dan, I was thinking of you when I was reading that and your friend and everything that you've been going through recently and how things just come up in life and just gut punch you, out of seemingly nowhere. Things are just going along, pretty good. And then all of a sudden, bam, get knocked down. Um, we don't have the convenience of being able to just flip back to the library like Nora does. And I don't think I would want it, honestly. I'm pretty happy staying in one place and trying to work things out. But sometimes, it's I mean, we all kind of, because of some of the books we've read, we've kind of gone back and forth. Like, is it, does it really have to go up and down and good and bad? Like that last book that we read said it really didn't have to, right? That the only reason that that was happening was because of our thought patterns and stuff. But then it's difficult to change, a whole lifetime of thinking one way and then suddenly and not really having that experience, and then suddenly try to think of it in a whole different way. And like, I'm still pretty on the things are kind of going to go up and down sort of thing, just like sound waves or whatever, there's just a sort of an up and down to this universe to me. But I don't know. What do you think?
Um, I tend to agree with you on a lot of that. But a thought that came to my mind is that I think to the point you were making about, slipping back to the library and stuff and all that. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to do that either. Because for me, I'm like you. I want to work through what I'm going through. I may not like what I'm going through, and I may um, sometimes complain or feel like, oh, this is too much. But I'm also learning that as I go through all the different ups and downs, they're what build me and help help me in the energy vibrations of what I'm taking from this, and hopefully will carry with me when I move on. But at the same point, I think Nora is finally realizing that, you know, there really is no such thing as that perfect life. And I think as we get older, we realize that there is really no such thing as the perfect life, no matter how we think it should be or whatever. But what we can do is go back and do the best we can with the one we're in and take it from there. And like in the book, it's like we're stepping into a new universe every second almost, because nothing really for us in this plane happens until we take that next step to whatever is going on, and how we respond to it and how we react kind of sets up how it will play out too, I think. Even though we're not in control of it, but it also kind of leads us down to, well, we might get closer to what we think our life should be, or we might get a little farther away. And I think if we can learn to understand that and work on reconciling that a little bit more, excuse me, sorry, and trust that in the way I look at God has that plan and knows where I'm going. It's just me to step through it all.
Yeah, it's interesting that she sort of gives that summary about the different life paths during that scene, and she has a very um, interesting way of putting it, sort of with a feeling of acceptance. And I thought that it was a kind way of putting that we're kind of should be happy with what we have because um, not only because we're stuck with it, but also because because it feeling like it would be better else, some other way is just going to make your reality even harder. So embracing it is kind of the best way to go. Is I mean, the way the author wrote it was very nice, and then it was interesting that um, she had that feeling and and had those thoughts, um, but right before she realized that her brother had overdosed in that life path, and then she couldn't take it and had still had to remove herself. So it's like you said, Catherine, where things can happen and even though you may have tried to prepare yourself, it can completely be a gut punch, take the wind right out of you, and seem to top stop time and uh, fracture your reality and just upend your whole understanding and feeling of excuse me, feeling of purpose or anything like that at the moment. And some things can, it's not just going off a rail, but smacking into a wall. However, there's, if you can't just phase out into the midnight library, then you're going down that path and have to experience it and make sense of it all. And it does become that growth, I guess, that growth opportunity. I've had a few friends that, well, go ahead, I can hold
Oh,
that.
no. I was gonna just say, it's interesting how you talk about, and it was hard to hear you on my end. I don't know if your volume's still kind of, or if it might be because I'm on my phone. But the like with Nora, it seems like every time she comes to that moment where it's something that she can't handle or whatever, she does fade back to the library. And like you said, we don't have in our lives, basically, we don't have that ability to just fade out. But in a way, I think people find ways to fade out. Um, like they'll get into, drugs, this, that, the other thing, whatever they find to help soothe or lessen or whatever. I think we all have our ways. I know, like for me, when my grandmother passed away, and that was almost 20 years ago, but when it first happened, it was probably the biggest sucker punch in my life. I mean, I knew it was going to happen, but at the same point, when it happened, I wasn't ready for it, if you get what I'm saying. Um, it's funny how, you know, and some people somehow push through it, or they find what we all find ways to cope, but we some of us choose to keep pushing through while others find ways to disengage. And I think that was part of Nora's thing way back. Somehow she kind of she still went through life, but she disengaged in life because she didn't follow through on this. She didn't follow through on that. She didn't follow because she was constantly looking for that perfect life. And then even now she says, in this last part, in one life I might be this, in one life I might be that, in one life, but it's all a matter of just, maybe I can find it. Oh, where was it? Oh, yeah. In one life I might be married, in another I might be working in a shop. I might have said yes to this cute guy, and all those, and then she says at the end, and we spend so much time wishing our lives were different, comparing ourselves to other people and to such other versions of ourselves, when really most lives, certain degrees of good and most lives contain degrees of good and degrees of bad. And I think that's part of going through life too, is learning how to deal and work through that with family, friends, people, to help us get to that next point of that second in our lives to move forward as to whatever it's going to end up being, second by second. So I think, we all have our ways of sometimes of disengaging.
Absolutely. People disengage a lot, or they just join a bandwagon, and kind of go along with somebody else's thing for a while. There's a lot of that going on. I really liked where she says um she's talking about sadness and how it's intrinsically part of the fabric of happiness. You can't have one without the other. Of course, they come in different degrees and quantity, but there's no life where you can be in a state of sheer happiness forever. And imagining there is, and this is the sentence I was looking for really, and imagining there is just breeds more unhappiness in the life you're in. That is, that's the crux right there to me, is because I catch myself doing it all the time, where I'm comparing against something else, and it is such a huge way to sabotage yourself, really. And I like somewhere earlier in that she talks about how we tend to look at outcomes and things that are going on as the way that we've are living in this life as opposed to just living. And I think that that's very true. We get so self-focused, you guys. Like we're so wrapped up in our own stuff the majority of the time that we don't even know what's going on with pretty much anybody else in the world, or, very few on a real basis, not just what people are telling us on social media and stuff, but like really knowing what's going on in someone's life. Um, I have made some really close Facebook friends that I've never met these friends, but I know what's going on in their life from what they tell me and stuff. And you hope that, people aren't just lying to you and stuff, but you never really know these days. Like I've been catfished before, and lost all my cryptocurrency to a scammer. So, that happens. Somebody can present themselves as somebody completely different and give you all of the everything that you need to say, okay, yes, they're proving that that's who they are, and that all of that can be fake. So you do have to be careful, but I'm pretty sure that these people that are sharing their lives with me privately are being genuine. And thank God for the internet, because these are people who, very much like myself, are how I used to be. They're housebound. Many of them are bedbound. They have no hope, absolutely no hope. And I know what that's like because I've been there. So I'm so grateful in this life for the internet because that's how I met you guys. I mean, we've never met in person, even though we've been friends for 10 years or whatever it is. Like, we've never met in person. Dan, I thought I was going to be coming to Las Vegas in the first part of October, and I was going to get to see you, but as it turns out, I'm not going to be able to make that trip. But one of these days, we're all going to get together and have like a family reunion because it is a family that we've made um, through the internet, though. And so I think that you can have genuine interactions with people. And if you can not be, if you can be a little less self-focused, I'm speaking to myself here, you can be a little less self-focused, you can help all kinds of people out there. Um, whether it's they need something on their website or, whatever your little talents are, you'd be surprised what an impact. There's a part in this chapter, I can't remember exactly where it was because I read a lot, but she was shocked at the impact that that one song, that song that she had written uh, to express her feelings and how she was feeling. She didn't even realize, I'm thinking this was a song that she wrote after her brother died. And she was trying to express all that pain. Um, and she was shocked to find out that later on that that song, those words had, quote, saved a man's life in Brazil. And I don't doubt that. I mean, it sounds funny. Oh, your song saved my life. But I have had songs come to me like in moments of despair, like a song will just pop into my head that that points me to another path or points me to hope or makes me remember another huge challenge that I have survived in the past and lets me know that I can do it even though I don't think I can do it. Songs are very powerful and words in general, but even just a smile can save somebody's life. So if people can, like, I am on social media every day, but I stay out of all the political stuff that's going on right now because it just puts me in such a space that I can't function. So you can call me the girl with her head in the sand or whatever. I don't care, but like I have to keep my vibration a certain way or my body doesn't function right. So I try to utilize it in a good way and then a lot of the hatred and rage and angst and all of that, I try to leave all of that alone. And there's a purpose for all that. I'm not telling anybody not to have it because, you know, all those things serve in some way or another. I'm not God. I can't tell you how, but I know everything that everybody's doing is serving, no matter how ugly it may seem. Somehow it's serving a purpose. And if we can just remember that we're all human beings, like we're all just trying to have a life here and not just a life here, but like we're going to have lives together after here, you guys. So we might as well learn to get along on some level so that we can get through this. And hopefully we're all learning and growing. But I was thinking about this the other day, and I'll say this quick and then shut up because I've been rambling. But I was thinking about this. You know how we've talked many times about how I believe anyway, that we pre-plan our lives before we come in. And so we have this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And we've often heard from many different people that our spirit guides, angels, whoever's, helps us, our counsel, so to speak, if you want to call it that. Like a lot of times they try to talk us out of some of this stuff. Like I'm sure this pain that I've been in, I'm sure my angels and guides like said, really, Catherine, like you really don't want to do that. And I was like, oh yeah, I can do it because whatever I thought at the time, I don't know. But I think that's why God gave us free will, because we're there, we have everything, we see the whole picture, we understand it clearly, we see the mission, we're ready to go for it. They're like, oh, wait a minute, you really don't want to do that? We're like, yeah, I can do it, I can do it. And then God's looking at us and just kind of shaking his head and saying, that poor thing, like they're going to get down there and be suffering so much. I'm going to give them free will to change their mind about that decision. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's how it plays out or not, but that's what I was thinking about the other day.
I think that free will is what helps keep us moving on in that every second of the existence. And what happens, because again, how we make a decision is how it moves us in the direction of however it will play out. We may not know exactly how it will play out, but once the decision is made, it's going to follow that track. You can't undo it until you get to another point where you can make another decision to make a change towards either, I think a lot of times we continue on that same path because we're already on it and we're not sure of what might happen if we really change it drastically, or we're afraid. And the other part is sometimes we forget that we have the ability to make that change and we think life just happens to us too. So I think it's a little bit of both. You were still muted, Jason.
Sorry, guys. So yeah, the yeah, I totally, I think I agree to a great extent with you, Dan, and also you, Catherine. These are those are some true statements, and I don't know. I think life is a sort of I mean, it's, some people say life's a crapshoot. That was a saying back in the day that I remember. But I can't help thinking that so much of it is just our mindset going through it, whether it's a, a choice that we make to have a certain mindset, or maybe the way we grew up. Um, for instance, if you grow up in a family that is where there's lots of people, maybe lots of kids, and um, you're part of that group, and there's always something going on, and a lot of you know hectic times, chaos, so to speak, because everybody's doing their own thing, but you're kind of in the mix. But you grow up that way, and then perhaps you grow up um, enjoying that and seeking that sort of sort of an existence all your life because you're used to it. You know how to work within it. Um, and on the opposite side, you grew up in a family where you were an only child, only had one brother or sister, and you're used to or you prefer your uh, a solitary existence where you don't do well in large group settings, or you prefer not to be in large group settings, so you seek out less of a less turmoil and more of a more um, security or stability or what have you, because I think that you know it, it's all in how we look at it and where our mindset is. And but like you said, with free will, we can choose to step outside of what we've been taught or brought up in, and try to um, have a different way of looking at it, that can benefit us in a better way. So I think I think that's what's neat about this book too, is that we are getting a chance to see things from a different perspective through Nora's eyes, as she's seeing things, experiencing things, and the author is hinting on uh, certain aspects of what is important to her. Um, it's kind of eye-opening, I think. Um, kind of, I don't know. She's giving us a different perspective, and at the same time telling the story, and yet we don't really know what the whole purpose of the book is. And so I think, isn't that kind of a little bit like our own life and our own existence? We're learning, experiencing, and looking for a purpose, and trying to give it a purpose. Um, and yet have to imagine that there can both be a purpose, and at the same time doesn't necessarily have to be. So, but I like what you're saying, Catherine, that no matter what we're doing, we are serving, um, even if we're not sure what it is. What do y'all think? I hope that could you guys hear me okay?
On my end, you're a
Yes, I hear you
little,
clearly.
I can hear you, but you're just a little softer to me on mine. But I think it might be, my side, not your side. But yeah, it's, you know, there's so much to all this that we are still learning, trying to figure out, trying to understand. And I don't know if, I don't think I'll fully understand everything on this side of my life. I think I'll understand more when I pass on to uh, the life. I believe that's further on and ahead when I finish this physical life on this earth and in this realm. Um, and maybe there is a lot in this one that I'm learning to take with me into that other realm and to use and to carry with me. And that's I think all I can do, and how I the only way I can look at it, I think, for me. I don't know about you guys, but for me.
Well, I think that our lessons definitely carry through. Um, but maybe not, you know, maybe not, because like she's flipping in and out of all these lives, and she doesn't necessarily, she's a completely different person each time. So, I mean, obviously in the book, there's kind of this theme where she's getting some memory between the lives, but in quote reality, whatever that is. You know, are there really, I mean, I think every soul has been around forever and lived thousands of lives or whatever, but there are some people that do think that it's a graduate, like you're this, and then like each life you progressively, your soul grows with the lessons and you become, quote, more and more enlightened life after life. But maybe it doesn't happen that way. You know, maybe you can be completely enlightened in one life and then the next life you're a turtle. Who knows? Like, I don't know. But um I certainly have learned a lot in this life. I don't know how much of it I had coming in. I've had a lot of help from guides in this life. So I don't know if I've made those connections, through different lifetimes, or that just happens to be how I am in this life, that I'm more open to it. Um, Maybe the next life I won't have guidance or remember, all these things that we've learned and talked about. And I mean, that's what makes life so curious to me. You never really know what's going to happen, even in the next minute. You don't know what's going to happen. You think you do. You kind of got your day planned and, you know, you're going to do this, that, or the other. But we all know like one thing can just come in there and rack that whole thing or take out your whole plan for the day. And then you got to recalculate and do something different that day. But it's certainly, for me, it certainly helps to take that observer position that Muji spoke about. If you guys remember Muji, um, and not just Muji, like every other guru on the planet has talked about. But if you take that observer position, like you're not even the person playing the video game, you're the person watching somebody else play the video game. You can get a completely different perspective on how things are going in your life if you can put a little distance between what's happening and your perspective on it.
Yeah, sure. It can help to kind of remove yourself from the moment and get that overhead view or that spectator view. Uh, yeah, I think it's also important to understand and believe and remember that we are that not just affected negatively by one thing, but one thing can come along and positively affect us as well, and even a string of unexpected positive events can happen in your life to completely you know change your path for the better. uh, and I really feel like the more we're open to that and the more we're looking for those types of events to come along, the more we're ready to see them and accept them and feel worthy of them, the more apt we'll be able to recognize them and incorporate them into our own lives. So
Yeah, interesting that what you just said, because it made me go back to thinking of when we did the book by Wayne Dyer's, change your thoughts, change your life, living the wisdom of the Tao, and uh dealing with that and how understanding and going from that, observer or, outside of, or from above point of view or something like that, where we can go from there. And then with understanding what we learned from the, the Wayne Dyer book, how to, I think, more equalize or better understand that, these ups and downs have a purpose in them. There is a purpose for the ups and downs. And ultimately it is to help us to learn, to grow, to help us in the overall journey that we're on. And I think from there, that's, part of what, life is, and with Nora, I think, as like when she, started understanding that there's this life, there's that life, there's, it's all a matter of how you look at it and how you move forward, and what you take of the main aspects of it and carry that with you, and letting go of some of the not so great aspects, but still having them there to remind you of where you're at and where you're headed. And I think we can grow from that.
Absolutely. And I think we just, if we can remember, because I remind myself every day, I monitor, I'm the thought police. I do monitor my thoughts. And, if I catch myself saying something negative in my head, I mean, I don't berate myself, but I redirect myself very quickly, because thoughts are vibration too. And I believe this is why, they say, well, if you think you're going to get sick, you'll get sick. And I think that there's something very true about that, but I think it's because of the vibration of that thought that causes the vibration of the cells in your body then to drop down to a lower place. And then your body's not, then it's not working as health properly, and then you get sick. So I try to remember, especially if I'm thinking thoughts about somebody else and what their thoughts or motives are. Like if I'm making up some story in my head about what somebody else is thinking about me or thinking about anything, you know, I I I stop that immediately. I mean, my mind will do that, but then I'm like, no, 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 you know, I redirect to a song or, a different activity, something else that will occupy my mind and get it off of that track. Because I think we all get, especially if we have some sort of uh, disagreement or something with somebody, we want to replay that over in our head over and over, and try to dissect it and figure it out. And so, but when you're doing that, you're staying in that same vibration, so you kind of I try to be very careful where my thoughts are vibrationally and keep them as high as I can. I mean, I've got to deal with life like everybody else, but I try to monitor myself and redirect myself when I find that my thoughts are not working on something in a constructive way. And I have to remind myself to do this. I don't know why I don't just do it naturally all the time. I mean, sometimes I do, but I also just forget to ask. Like, I have guides that give me answers, and you have guides too. I'm not the only one with guides. Everybody here has guides. You just have to figure out how they're talking to you. Like, it could be a million different ways that they're talking to you, but they are. You just have to figure it out. I mean, it might not be right in your ear, a direct message, but it might be a billboard that flashes in front of you or a song that comes on the radio or whatever. But I will get myself where I'm just trying to figure something out, just feel like I just want to slam my head against the wall because I can't figure something out. And then suddenly I'm just like, oh, well, I could ask for help, you know, and then I'll get guidance. I may not get it instantaneously, like picking up the phone and talking to somebody, but if I can just not even have faith, but if I can just know that if I ask for help, I'm going to receive it. If I can just know that, if I can just know in my heart that this life is to help me, not to hurt me. This life is for me. It's happening for me, not to me. That's kind of a cliche that you hear a lot, but it's true. It's really, really true. That's why it's a cliche, because it is. It's happening for us. It's not like we're just sent here to be tortured for our entire life. Yeah, like look at Nora's what she thought was her perfect life, being a lead singer for the Labyrinths. And then when that guy, that interviewer listed all that shit that had happened in her life, I mean, she could look at that and say, I mean, anybody could look at all that and just decide to quit, but look at how, I mean, every bad thing that's ever happened to me in my life, what I consider quote bad, because there's not really bad, but every one of those things has either assisted me, shown me where I had strength when I didn't, introduced me to somebody that I needed to meet, um, dropped me to my knees so badly that I had to admit that I I need help, that I can't do everything on my own. I can't be entirely independent. That is not what this life is for. We're here to interact with other people and stuff. And so every one of those things, I've been completely bedbound, where somebody else had to do everything for me. And that is a very vulnerable place to be. It's a very vulnerable place to be. And it's a very humbling place to be. When somebody else is wiping your ass for you, it is quite humbling. I'm just telling you guys. So, and it'll happen one day when you get old, but it's not supposed to happen when you're young. But it's life changing. These lessons are on how much we depend on one another, whether we want to admit it or not, and how much we are, how fragile we are, even though we're so very, very strong. Like it's such a dichotomy, like and without having those experiences, you you just, you've heard people say, well, you just don't understand because you're not going through it. And that's right. Nobody understands unless they're actually going through it. So I think that's why we have to come here and go through it. And that's how we learn and that's how we grow. And hopefully some of this, I mean, I think overall as a soul, of course, we retain all of these learnings and teachings, but whether it surfaces in the next lifetime, now that I don't really know or not. I think we can probably go forwards or backwards. I think we play the part that is needed to be played for the betterment of our soul group, or, you know, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and that's a little bit about what this scene was too. I think that she's was realizing a little bit about the part that she had played in other people's lives, even though she hadn't necessarily intended to, but she had affected so many people with her music and that life path. And you know, that kind of makes me to think it's like, you know, whether you know, the life path that you choose, and also like what you're saying about kind of being centered on ourselves. Um, you know, we're going to have an effect on other people throughout our lives, no matter what we do. Uh, but yeah, whether it's intentional or not, I guess. And so, um, you know, it sort of makes sense to just try our very best to make the most of it and get through it the best way we can, to not only be there for ourselves, but also um, there for others. And, but yeah, that just dawned on me from what you were saying, that there's a lot of that in this scene with Nora.
Well, I don't know about you, but I think we've covered a lot today. It's getting close to 8:30. So I think I'm gonna round it up if unless anybody else has something else to say. But if not, then I will round it up and go from there. So any last thoughts, or are we all good?
I think pretty good. I just I know I'm gonna go throughout my days over this weekend and over the week, and I'm gonna look for positive opportunities and choose a good mindset. Try to choose a good mindset every day. Thank you so much for hosting, Dan. Appreciate you, and thank you, Catherine, for reading. Another wonderful reading by you. Appreciate it.
I'd like to say thank you for getting in and getting it set up. Seeing how I ran into technical difficulties this weekend where I'm at, but it all came together. So to me, that says that this was supposed to work out, and that that's a positive thing. And I think with our group, we always have stuff to say. We always have something to add and um, hopefully add to each other's lives and to those that might watch and follow us. You can find us on Facebook at mindsetmasterycollective.com. You can also go to YouTube at mindsetmasterycollective.com there and find or actually mindset mastery collective not.com, but there, and find all the replays of all the videos that we've done over the last like 10 years. And you were right, Catherine, this group has become a family. I know we all love each other very much, and I agree with you. One day we do have to meet somewhere where we can all give each other huge hugs and just to celebrate, the friendship and the love that we have. But also looking forward to anybody else who wants to join us. You can get a hold of us either at Facebook or through YouTube or through our website, mindsetmasterycollective.com. Shows you all the ways you can come and be a part of the panel. And we would love to have you join us. Samantha, we missed you this week, but we hope you're having fun with all the kiddos, celebrating different grandkids' birthdays and not getting too worn out, and that you'll have energy to last the whole day, which is probably easier said than done. So we love you and we miss you. And we look forward to seeing you all next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. And hope Lori has fun up in the mountains today. She gets to go out, see beautiful scenery while we're all doing what we're doing. So I'm going to just hold that thought of beautiful mountain scenery in my head as I'm going out to do my Ubering today. So love you. See you all next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind.